Okay, everyone, let's go ahead and get started. Meeting will come to order, please. Don't forget to turn off your phones and please take a seat if you would. We're going to begin with the invocation by Commissioner Werfel, and then Commissioner Bell is going to lead us in the pledge. If you wish to join us, please rise.
I don't know if we should close the doors or not. There's a lot of meetings going on in the hallway. Heavenly Father, we thank you for today and your promise to be with us. I ask for you to guide our discussions today so they are productive. Let us hear with open hearts and open minds. Let our discussions reflect your will for our county. In your son's name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
Please join me in the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay. Thank you, Julie and Ray. Madam Clerk, let's get rolling. Do the roll call.
Bell,
Here.
Curran,
Here.
Freeling, present. Harrison,
Here.
Hinkleman.
Here.
Majerick,
Here.
Ott,
Here.
Pittsburgh,
Here.
Ballraff,
Here.
Werfel,
Here.
Yarborough, Elliott.
Here.
Mr. Chair, you have 11 present, 1 absent.
Thank you. The minutes from last week, is there a motion to approve as submitted?
I'll make that motion.
Moved by Pittsford, supported by Volrath. Any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Minutes are approved. Madam Clerk, communications.
Yes, you received 6 communications, a resolution from Ontonagon County Board of Commissioners affirming support of all constitutional rights, including but not limited to the right of the people to bear arms and to adequately fund mental health services, received on April 24th. A resolution from Elkona County Board of Commissioners supporting the revised school code House Bill 4284, received on April 24th. A letter of support from Benton Harbor City Mayor Marcus Muhammad for the Community Violence Intervention Preventative Initiative, received on April 25th. A resolution from Livingston County Board of Commissioners in support of the Second Amendment of the U.S. Constitution and the Michigan Constitution, received on April 26th. An email from Betty Pierman, Benton Harbor, to support the Berrien County Health Department pursuit of a grant from the Department of Justice, received on April 27th. An email from Gail Hartline, Orinoco Township, in support of the grant and protecting our kids, received on April 27th. That's all.
Thank you. We're now at the point where we receive public comments on resolutions. I don't think we have any added resolutions, so it's simply what's on the written agenda. If you have anything you'd like to share, please feel free to do so. Name and town, 2 minutes or less.
I'm Melissa Clapper, St. Joseph Charter Township, in regards to the resolution ending in 4193. I just want to quote from the resolution itself, the last whereas. Whereas community violence intervention is an approach that uses evidence-informed strategies to reduce violence through tailored community-centered initiatives with multidisciplinary strategies that engage individuals and groups to prevent and disrupt cycles of violence and retaliation and establish relationships between individuals and community assets to deliver services that save lives, address trauma, provide opportunity, and improve the physical, social, and economic conditions that drive violence. Why wouldn't we want to go down that road to try to achieve those things in ways that we can? It doesn't mean this is a major public health risk, the violence. It is very clear that too many people inappropriately possess guns and use guns with violent outcomes. This is a national as well as a local problem. It is common sense to study at both the national and at the local level. Obtaining this grant would allow us to research and take action to control the problem of violence in Berrien County. Overall, violence prevention decreases the need for red flag laws. So, I mean, why wouldn't we want the opportunity to make this county a better place for all of our children? We have a little one right in the room. Why not make it important and a place for that child to live and grow and be productive in this county? Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
Sorry, sir. Hello, I'm Dr. Larry Feldman from Lakeside. I'm a member of ALPACT, our local community organization for promoting collaborative efforts between the police and our communities. The organization met last Tuesday for our monthly meeting and set priorities for this coming year. Number one on the list of priorities was supporting efforts to reduce gun violence in our communities. Gun violence is now the number one cause of death for children and adolescents in our country. Number one cause of death for children and adolescents. We need evidence-based programs to reduce gun violence, exactly the sort of thing that the health department wants to apply for. I urge you to support them. Thank you.
Anyone else wish to be heard on agenda resolutions? Sir.
Rick Brian, Niles Township. To answer what she just said of why wouldn't you want to take this money? Because federal dollars come with federal strings. And I just heard in finance that the reporting on this is even harder than most of the grants you guys get. You have to jump through hoops just to do this. And as far as gun violence being the number one cause of death, I don't know where this is coming from. It's got to be some research study that probably done by Michigan State or something. But the number one cause of death for children is now and always has been abortion. So if we're going to deal with the deaths of children, let's talk about dealing with abortion and not just trying to talk about gun violence. Who's going to go and investigate this gun violence stuff? Who's going to enforce these gun violence laws that we're talking about? It's supposed to be for violence, for all kind of violence, but these people keep talking about gun violence and gun violence. So it sounds like they're trying to address gun issues through a backdoor method, and I don't think we need any of that. So I would vote no. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, ma'am.
No, he's not. He's sleeping there. Regarding the grant that the health department is looking at applying for. This is actually from Deb Frank of Hager Township. My name is Victory Woodall, and I am from Lincoln Township, reading on behalf of Deb Frank. She said, at first glance, this grant seems to be about simply preventing violence. However, there are two incredibly concerning pieces of information the commissioners should be considering. Number one, what we're trying to do here at the Berrien County Health Department is work with the Department of Justice to create some sort of a system that allows for interventions, said Guy Miller. What does allows for interventions mean? Parents across Berrien County found out during COVID that the health department was not opposed to asserting power, real or perceived, over the schools, police, and even the county commission. All of these latter agencies declared to the parents that there's nothing we can do. Number two, the Department of Justice press release for this grant specifically calls out ERPO and Bipartisan Safer Communities Act of 2022. There can be no other way to interpret that except that the Department of Justice intends for this money to be used to enforce red flag laws. The contention from the Berrien County Commission is that they intend to let the sheriff and law enforcement do what they do and will not interfere. Interfere. Has absolutely no bearing on this grant. The inferences made by the Department of Justice and the Berrien County Health Department officer assert the intention and authority of the health department to intervene on behalf of red flag laws, essentially removing our local law enforcement. Any contention that this is misinformation needs to only look at our county's recent history between schools, law enforcement, county commission, and the health department. Unless the county commission can clarify legally that the health department does not have the authority to enforce laws, or that the commission will not simply let the health department do what they do, they should all object to this grant application. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, ma'am.
My name is Ashley White from Lincoln Township, and my question is I think it's really naive to think that there's any way of having any control over this money. This is a large sum of money, and having any control over it is just naive. I mean, 20% of that money is going to be funneled into Michigan State. What's the motivation behind that? And have we not learned anything from the COVID money? What they did with the money? I mean, where is the trust here? I mean, if it's too good to be true, it probably is. And I think that in the 8:30 meeting, I know some of you weren't here, but there was something brought up by the sheriff that said, well, this isn't going to be put into red flag and they're probably not going to pass red flag. And, you know, there's a chance that might not be passed. Well, we also didn't think that they could remove religious exemption. And in Public Act 6 of 2023, they did really remove religious exemption from that. So, I mean, they could very much turn this money into a problem with the red flag. So, I mean, we have a very concerning issues here. And I think that it's appropriate to question these things and ask what's the motivation behind this and what are we learning from all the things that we went through since 2020.
Thank you, ma'am. Yes, sir.
Wow. Michael Hoy, City of Benton Harbor, 292 Bellevue. I wasn't really going to speak today, but I commend Chokwe Pickford for headlining this. We live with violence in our community of Benton Harbor and St. Joe, and Benton Harbor and Benton Township and Niles. I'm the author of the Benton Harbor Unsolved Murders. I had an AK-47 in my backyard. You can Google Michael Hoy, you'll see it. The violence in Benton Harbor is real. From what I'm seeing here is St. Joe Township, Stevensville, and everybody else. You don't live in our community. This is going to help our community. There's no way that this administration would not do what's right for the city of Benton Harbor with the violence that's going on there. And thank you for taking the steps necessary to bring this forward. For once, someone is putting an eyeball on Benton Harbor and looking at what's going on in our community. Yes, we have a lot of issues. Lord knows that. Okay? But please, someone is trying to do the right thing here. And if you think that these monies are going to be funneled somewhere else or something else on it, then continue to keep your eye on it. But this is directed towards what we live every day in the city of Benton Harbor. So please, let this go forward. Yes, get your special interest groups to watch it. I agree with that. We need to, because Lord knows there's been money going everywhere. Okay? But at least someone is taking the time and the direction to look at what's going on in these communities. And thank you, and I applaud you for that. I applaud you to help keep an eye on it and help work with our community. And this is the necessary steps to go forward. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, ma'am.
Robin Graffinius, Lincoln Township. And I'm sorry about the state of Benton Harbor, but this is our entire county that we're talking about, not just the city of Benton Harbor or Benton Township or the city of Niles. And I know that we have issues. We have issues everywhere. We have issues in Stevensville and St. Joe and everywhere. So I don't think that we can isolate. I don't think that we can look at this big issue on just a small scale of one area of our county, since it's an entire county that's being affected here. I agree with what Ashley said about the misuse of funds. The COVID funds are ridiculous. We all know that. We know that on small scale and large scale, that money was misappropriated. Some of it's still hanging out there. That's how I see this too. There is no, the big word was flexible. They're so flexible with this money. Flexibility, again, I know I said this earlier, but it just means that corruption. It means that money can be appropriated, misappropriated. There's not going to be appropriate tracking on it because they're not telling us, they're not telling you what to do with it. And again, we've been down this road before with the health department, that once you cross that bridge, you can't uncross it. And I just don't want to see us back in this same situation again like we were with COVID. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, sir.
Regarding resolutions. Oh, is it open comment yet? It is,
No.
but regarding resolutions on.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard at this point regarding resolutions on the agenda? Yes, ma'am.
Hello, I'm Teresa Brian with the City of Niles. I guess I did speak earlier at the 8:30. And then after hearing the sheriff and other people talk more about it, I have to agree, it seems like there's already kind of a set idea. Like they said, they want Michigan State University right away was the one that's being supported. I keep hearing about gun violence. And I feel like it's kind of set that this grant has so much opportunity that could really do help. It doesn't have to be just set for whatever propaganda or whatever they might have in line for this. So as I said earlier, and I think what I'm hearing from everybody, that if this is something that the board went with, to really make sure that the community is very involved. Don't hide things. Take community's opinions, and involvement from the communities, all of us that are being affected. So I guess that's all I wanted to say with that.
Thank you, ma'am. Anyone else? Okay, we'll close comments regarding resolutions. Have a little housekeeping detail. We're going to move the quarterly briefing on litigation to the 11th, 2 weeks from today. But to do that, we need to amend the agenda. So is there a motion to amend the agenda to move the quarterly update to the 11th?
Mr. Chair, I make the motion that we amend the agenda to reflect closed session on the 11th of May
Okay, for litigation
for
update.
litigation update.
Okay, and Dave, you're supporting that? Okay. We have to have at least a 2/3 majority, so let's do a roll call.
Curran,
Yes.
Freeling,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Hinkleman.
Yes.
Majerick,
Yes.
Yes.
Pitchford,
Yes.
Walrath,
Yes.
Werfel,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yeas.
thank you. We're now at the consent calendar. I've had a request to pull the resolution ending in 4193 for individual consideration and a separate vote. Anything else that anyone wants pulled from the consent calendar? All right, well, let's take care of the consent calendar and then we'll address 4193 separately. Is there a motion to approve the consent calendar without 4193?
So moved.
Moved by Freeling, supported by Pitchford. Any discussion? Madam Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Freeling,
Yes.
Harrison,
Yes.
Hinkleman,
Yes.
Majerick,
Yes.
Yes.
Pitchford,
Yes.
Walrath,
Yes.
Werfel,
Yes.
Bell,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Elliott.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 11 yeas.
thank you. Okay, now we'll take up 4193. As you know, and for the benefit of the folks here, to talk about it, it first has to be moved and supported, and then we can open up for discussion around this horseshoe. There won't be any additional public comment received at this point, but it'll be amongst and between the Board of Commissioners, and we may, if we have a question for staff who might be present, we may call on them to comment. But right now, is there a motion to move this forward?
I make that motion.
Moved by Pitchford, is there support? Supported by Bell. Now, discussion. Yes, sir.
Thank you to my colleagues. See the coalition that was built here to put this in front of you. This is the sheriff, prosecutor, Board of Health, Health Department, Mayor of Benton Harbor, Supervisor of Township, Mayor of Niles. This is not a partisan group. This is not a political issue. This is truly trying to invest in community violence intervention. That is it. This is not some Democratic grab for red flag laws. None of the people in that list would have signed on if it was. This has been talked about for months. We've gone through the process. It's been vetted. Everyone on this board was given ample information about this issue. The RFP, memos, Board of Health or Health Department reports. It was all sent out. The experience in my community is not unique. This is happening everywhere. It is not just gun violence. It's community violence. It's me laying in bed at night and a woman got shot outside of my window. I call the police and watch them drag her body away. That's not something that red flag laws and gun bans are going to fix. That is systemic rot and systemic problems in community that exist way before someone is old enough to get a firearm. 16, 15-year-olds getting shot and killed in the streets. That's not something that a red flag law would fix, but I believe this first step could in addressing these problems at the systemic root, because no one here would say that people in Benton Harbor, Niles, and Benton Township are born that way. No one would say our genetics make us more likely to shoot someone. There is something that is going wrong, and I think that is the community that has to come together. If you go to church, you've heard people say it takes a village to raise a child. In my community, that village no longer exists. We're unfunded, we're separated. There is not a coordinated effort, and I think Berrien County could help with that coordinated effort. All I'm asking for is an up or down vote. Stack the Community Violence Intervention Task Force that has to be put together, put law enforcement on it. Law enforcement, just do that. This program would still be effective because what it is trying to do is address a root cause. Before a person ever touches the gun, why is their mentality such that taking a life isn't something that goes, whoa, I shouldn't do that? Why am I growing up in a community where I'm hearing about a 3-year-old who's shot in the head and everybody's like, well, you know, it happens. That's not sustainable. That makes the sheriff's job harder. That makes the police department's job harder. That makes it harder for people to want to move to this area and live in these communities. It makes it hard for economic development. It makes it hard across the board. So as we're talking about building a new jail and getting appropriations, we should start addressing why people are showing up in the jail disproportionately from my community. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else?
I just like to, echo some of Commissioner Pitchford's points, and also emphasize that as a Berrien County Commissioner, one of the things that Commissioner Yarborough, in her absence, I recognize that she often says when she's talking to a group of people is that she's not just representing the city of Benton Harbor, but she's representing Berrien County. She's a Berrien County Commissioner. And I think as the 12 of us, meet on a weekly basis and we discuss issues that affect the county as a whole, we have to remember and we have to kind of take on the demeanor of no community should be left out of us making decisions that is best for the county as a whole. Even as gun violence is more prevalent in the city of Benton Harbor or the township of Benton Charter, we still, as a collective, must think about how this is impacting us as a county, how this is impacting whether people want to move here and build a family and start careers here in the county of Berrien. We have to think about how this is impacting, how our children grow up. As a elected official that is fairly young compared to my colleagues, I often think about the potential or lack thereof of people like us moving into this community and prospering. I ran on the fact that there are a lot of people my age and a lot of people that look like me that really has lost faith in the public's ability to protect and provide services for the community in which they serve. And so with all that said, I would ask that we think about what we're trying to do, the impact we're trying to make on our community, and also just vote in faith that whatever is decided here, we have the ultimate control of how we want this initiative, what direction we want it to go. So if there's a task force created, we can have a number of us sit on that task force along with community members, those who are concerned about, some of the things that this money will go towards. It's all there for us to come together and put our heads together to work towards a solution. But we have to start somewhere. And so I believe this initiative, this grant will go towards us putting our heads together and finding the solution and really working for the people of which we serve. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, ma'am. Julie and then Dave.
I've got a few notes I'm gonna read from, and I appreciate your comments. I appreciate the US Attorney this morning giving some clarifications, Guy giving clarifications. There's been a lot reported on this, only frankly, Commissioner Pitchford, in the last 2 weeks. I never received any of this information until the last 2 weeks. The things that I've seen in the newspaper that have been reported is this is about suicide. This is about gun and gang violence. This is about violence of all kinds. This is about having mentors walk with children in the 8 to 10 age group. This is about, there's a lot of things going on about what this is all about. A large issue that I had initially with this resolution is that it's so open-ended. There's no clarifications. There's nothing that tells us the direction it's going. And without that, all of those concepts become fair game. And they could potentially be what the outcome is. A task force, a committee is going to be made up of many, many things, or people, sorry, not things. And in all of those views obviously would be taken into consideration. However, we have to look at, this is wide open. Does this belong at the county level? Does this belong in a nonprofit? Does this belong in Benton Harbor? Does this belong in Niles? Does this belong? Where does it belong? We've spent a number of us have spent the last 3 days in Lansing, talking to our legislators, talking about our county priorities. 3 of the 5 priorities were the jail, juvenile center, and dispatch. So all involve law enforcement. We talked to all 5 of our representatives. All 5 of them agreed those were great priorities and those were things we need to do. In fact, Representative Andrews made the comment that if anybody doesn't think our jail improvement plan would not be improving justice in Berrien County, I'd be happy to give them the tour. So he felt so strongly about that priority. If this is not political, if this is not those things, then why is the message reaching us this morning that those things are no longer going to be a priority unless we accept this grant and accept these dollars? There's something behind it if that's the case. If there are programs, there are lots of programs, there are programs in the health department that work with families, that work with helping do those things. And I'm good with, we need to reduce community violence. I 100% agree. It needs to be nice if it was 0. None of us wants violence. And we need to look at those things that will help reduce that. But I think we know those things. I think we know what some of those things are, and we need to have the dollars to be able to implement those things and to be able to do those things. But we keep wanting to study more. We keep wanting to do those things. If the audit level was brought up, that was probably what was talked at finance. We don't have people already for programs. So now we're going to be able to get more people for new programs. We're going to have costs associated with future programs. In admin this morning, I was one of the people trying to rush out of here because I knew we had a very full agenda in admin. Well, one of the biggest things that we talked about was about all of our costs right now to how do we take care of these buildings? That's coming before us next week. How do we pay for all these things? We don't have the dollars to do that now, which is why we met with those people this week in Lansing to try and figure out how can we get more dollars? How can we do things so that we can improve the conditions throughout Berrien County for all of those things? I think we need to focus on our strategic goals. I think we need to work towards those. And yesterday I did write this down too, because yesterday there was a $500,000 community sports center approved through AEP, which hopefully should be a great thing also to give young people another avenue to meet people and to do things and maybe keep them away from violence. Don't know if that is or not, but yeah, I'm gonna be not supporting today. I'm sorry about that.
I agree a little with Julie because I can't support this. I'm just, we've had violence in Berrien County for a long time. Benton Harbor is, Benton Township, Niles, the bigger populations. They've been dumping money into the sheriff's department for years and years on different programs, good programs and positive programs and things for the kids. That's where the money needs to go. It needs to go to the schools. It needs to get those kids early. And bringing the money through the county, I don't think is going to do that. I don't like the idea when he said, here's $2 million. If you don't know how to spend it, hire somebody to do it. You can take that money out of the grant. You're going to take money out of the grant that's supposed to help people to pay somebody's salary. I don't like that at all. And we know that the violence is out there and we know it's got to stop. There's got to be a different way than $2 million coming through the county health department. Did the money always go through the sheriff's department before? And now they say, well, that didn't help. Let's try it through someplace else. Because I don't know, because you had the task force. I don't know what was discussed there, but something has to be done, Shockway. And I don't disagree with that. I don't agree that this is the way to do it. I'm sorry.
Yes, sir.
So initially, I talked with Pitchford Commissioner Pitchford, and I support this 100%. I agree with him on the mental issue. We've got to fix that. We really do. Violence, 100%. But I started reading through this the last couple of days, and I found a press release that was issued on February 14th. And this is what worries me. And this is quoted from that press release from the Department of Justice for Michigan. This would be implemented in accordance with the Constitution and provided for adequate due process protection. Here's my concern with this. We saw during COVID, the Department of Justice, the Health Department, both Michigan, Berrien County, were incapable of supporting the law and constitutional rights when it forced kids to wear masks, when it forced businesses to close. I just don't see the Health Department being involved with this because the language is so open. But then I agree 100% with Commissioner Pitchford, though. Something's got to be done. Benton Township, Benton Harbor, we were just reported today that they are down 13 officers in Benton Township, 13 officers in Benton Harbor. Why is grant money not available to hire and train officers and to get them on the street to help, officers working in the community? That to me, that's a huge thing, whether it's Benton Harbor, Bridgman, New Buffalo. So that's just where I'm coming from. I'm still thinking it over, but the language to me is just too open. And I'm sorry about that, but that's just my personal opinion.
All right, thank you. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, ma'am.
Oh. I'm a ma'am, aren't I? Right. I appreciate the opportunity to speak on this. I will echo what Commissioner Warfel had stated. The first that this came on my radar was about 2 weeks ago with reports that came to us and a document of your executive summary that was about creating a gun task force under the funding that would be coming from the health department if the health department did get approval to apply for this. I kept asking questions. I kept trying to get a clear answer of what the end objectives and metrics would be to get to this point. I had to dive into it. I read the 50-page document of the application. I watched the webinars, I read the press releases, I jumped into the act on the Safer Community from 2022 that funds this initiative. We are creating ourselves a program that will last for 3 years with this funding. 20% of it, 400,000, would be for research. The first 6 months would be for us to establish the team for violent crime intervention and prevention. So we have 6 months to make those partnerships, get the memorandums of understandings, resolutions, all of those sorts of things. Those are not required on the front end of this application. We have 9 months to complete the research with whatever research team we wish to partner with. We heard today that would be perhaps Michigan State. We're creating a legacy cost. It even states it in the summary that they encourage the applicant to be looking at how you will sustain this program moving forward. And I know that there was conversation of community stakeholders perhaps being that funding source. I stated in finance, and I'll state it here, it's half-baked what's coming to us as a board. The messages have been mixed. Is it a gun violence task force? Is it suicide prevention? Is it domestic abuse prevention and reduction? Is it mentorship with 8 to 10-year-olds partnering with community stakeholders that can have those conversations of what the root cause is for them to feel the way that they are? For that reason, I'm a no, because we've been having this conversation about the costs that we're facing currently. Don't feel that we've really gotten a firm understanding of what the dollars would be utilized and what it will be creating. We have a month to present this application. It's a 50-page document with a lot of work. I simply asked for a abstract for the proposal, the beginning, that requires a 400-word document that would state, this is what we're proposing. And I have not yet to see that, and we're 4 weeks out. For that reason, and the timing, and what it would require for resources, I'm a no.
Let me make sure we've heard from everyone who wants to be heard from first, and then we'll go to a second round. John.
Thank you, Riante. Very quickly, I'll be brief. I came here with an open mind, wanted to hear what needed said around the table. Sometimes what I read and the way I interpret it may be different than the way somebody else reads it, so I wanted to actually hear the dialogue. The one thing that I heard very clearly today, which gives me cause as to the root cure, what they're looking for, is that Mark Totten today, and I think I got this verbatim, but I wrote down one of the last things that he said. You want questions answered as to what we're going to do. And he said, and I don't know that I got this verbatim because I did it quickly, but this grant its primary purpose was to identify those people who are most at risk of committing violent crimes. When he said that was a huge indicator to me that I wanted to see more about how the grant would be used before you can approve going down the rabbit hole to do it. Because if the main purpose of this grant is to identify those people, then I have concerns. I legitimately do. I have been a supporter of law enforcement, and I stand fast. Sheriff's been asking for years, and as it have other law enforcement departments, I need more people. We need more help. And I'm not sure that this, through the health department, is the way to get there. So those are my comments. And like I said, when I heard that comment from Mark Totten, that it was to identify those people, that was a that was a huge turning point for me. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, Chokwe, back to you.
Thank you. Number one, I have not heard a single person here today, and this is to everyone's credit. No one said this isn't a problem. Everyone's saying they are concerned about how we go about doing this. Is that fair to say? So, especially for the commissioners on the board, being on the task force, being a part of the planning process, being there to ensure your concerns are met, that it's not being geared towards where you don't want it to go, making sure that we have county staff, we have law enforcement at the table, would alleviate every concern I've heard today. I've heard that because of the way the health department has operated in the past, we are afraid of giving them funding today. This would have a stronger oversight mechanism as well. Secondly, John, to your point about, identifying, what I gathered or what I ascertained from what Mr. Totten said is that when we're identifying those most likely to commit crimes, it's to the statistics that say that specifically young boys of color get on a path towards violence much younger than girls, than Caucasian white boys and girls. Young boys of color get on a path towards murder and gang violence much earlier. And if we can identify where in the timeline that occurs and start redirecting people towards maybe getting into public service, becoming a firefighter, becoming a police officer, finding ways to make it so that the people that we graduated with, most of them or some of them are in the ground. People are losing their daughters, their sons, their kids, not just to gun violence, but suicide by handgun. That is a huge problem. And just taking the gun away is not going to fix that problem. There is something going on up here. And the national dialogue that happens is that one side says, take the gun away. One side say, you can't touch my guns. But both agree that mental health is extremely important. And some of the predetermining factors of how we get mass shootings, how we get domestic violence, how we get suicides. So can we come to a consensus that we could address that? I don't think throwing the baby out with the bathwater here is the answer. I think everyone has concerns. Everybody wants to be at the table. Let's make this a collaborative process and get something done. But voting this down and saying no, when you have the sheriff, the prosecutor, the health department, mayors and supervisors of those towns all in agreement saying this will help us, sends a bad signal. It says that working across party lines, bipartisanship, doing things for the community will still get shot down by this board because it may be deemed political.
Thank you. Anyone else? I have a process question or two, or Bob, sorry, go ahead.
So,
I didn't.
so I think this is clearly an issue that presents, philosophical differences for each of the commissioners. Some of us are more comfortable with the grant process, recognizing that as you start down that journey, you don't have all the answers. And then the nice thing I heard about the Department of Justice grant was that it allowed for flexibility about the strategies the community chooses to follow. The disappointing thing is, it's clearly not, this is not the time for this project. I think the issue in front of us is, as the health department board has said, they are very concerned about violence in our county, and specifically in several of our communities. And so if indeed this is not the time to go down this path with this grant, I think we as commissioners need to consider what path we want to go down, because this will not go away without some type of concerted community effort. And clearly we're not ready for that at this point in time.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, I am in favor of the thought process and moving forward on helping our community. I am worried that everybody else on this side is not bought into it yet. So there's clearly something missing. And when we need to get more answers in front of us so that we can make that decision. I am 100% in favor of the Second Amendment. And I do believe in people owning guns. I mean, when I grew up, every truck that a kid drove had a shotgun in the back. It was a different mindset then, and I agree we need to get back to that and change it. But I don't know if we just need some more answers, as Commissioner Freeling said, to move forward to get everybody on board. And maybe it's not the right time. Maybe we should push it off until we sell it better. That's my.
So this has to be turned in before Memorial Day, is that right?
Correct, sir.
I'm mindful of the comment that no one is arguing about the need to address violence. And at our earlier session, I mentioned that without a lot of research, I think we already know some of what's going on here. And it ties to the basic breakdown of the family unit and kids not finishing school. If you're educated, you have more options. If you're raised by mom and dad, you have a better chance at having a good life when you become an adult and perpetuating that process. You know, the young kids who grow up in a single parent household and somehow manage to succeed are truly remarkable individuals because they have not had all of the tools that would otherwise be available. They've done it almost in spite of starting out at a deficit. So, and I hear the comments about flexibility, and perhaps flexibility could be construed as ambiguity. I don't want to do something that is a photo op and not a whole lot more. I also don't want to pass the opportunity to at least try to do something meaningful, because we are seeing an unraveling of the social fabric. And giving someone $400,000 to tell me, well, you have too many kids who are being raised in an unstable home and they're not finishing school, we already know that. The question is, what are we going to do to try to help those kids? How do we best do that? You know, encouraging the young girls to not buy into the story that the young boy tells them about how I'm going to love you in the morning too. Because chances are he's not. And we have some tools available through the health department to help kids who are at risk. Can we fortify that? Can we help the schools? Can we help RESA? Can we help Truancy Academy, the GEDs for somebody who's in jail? Can we do those things under this grant? Will those fit within the four corners of it? Terry's read the whole 50-page document. I haven't. I commend her for that. But having read it, she comes away with pause. So my question is, can we submit the application? Because there was discussion about 2 votes by this board. Can we submit it? And then between submission and the second vote, which would have to do with acceptance, can we tailor something that addresses what we already know needs to be addressed? You don't have enough jail space to lock everybody up. What can we do to help steer someone away from a likely short life and a life that has a criminal record before it ends? What can we do? Can we do anything? I know it's a national problem. Can't save the whole country. Can we do something about this corner of the state? I'd like to try that. But can we start the process? And then if we get pushback from DOJ and they say, no, we're not gonna let you go there. We're not gonna let you talk about trying to help young men and women have a true north pointer on their moral compasses and help them get educated, help them defer starting a family till they can actually support their kids and raise them towards being productive adults. If they say, no, we don't want you doing that, then I'd say, here's your money back. But can we try it? Can we get it started? And then do we have the opportunity to pull the lever on the emergency brake and say, we're not doing this unless we can do it the way we think is going to be the most effective. Now, you read the 50-page document. Chokwe, you've done a lot of research on this. Riante, I know you have. Bob, do we have that flexibility? Does anybody know? Terry.
I think it comes down to timing. We literally have 4 weeks. That 50-page document requires not only the abstract, but the proposal, the timeline, the budgetary requirements to be able to bake that all in. Some of the conversations, I wish I would have known that they were ongoing up until 2 weeks ago or whenever it was, because there is the need of those partnerships and those letters of support to be baked into that. And if we have already studies that have been done that we can augment onto, those could have all been brought into this proposal.
Yeah. Well, okay, and
My thoughts.
I get it. We're at the card table. We're playing the hand we're dealt now.
Yep.
The 2020 hindsight retrospectoscope being what it is, maybe we do things differently next time. Through my practice, I've had occasion to be involved with the sale of 4 golf courses. By the time I got to the 4th one, I had about 3/4 of it already done from the prior 3.
Right.
Okay. I didn't tell the client I'm gonna only charge you 1/4 of what it's gonna cost, because I've done 3/4 of this already. But I'm wondering, does DOJ have, I mean, you've got Grand Rapids, you've got a couple other places here in the state who've successfully submitted applications. Could we, in the interest of avoiding the entire reinvention of the wheel, could we pull some of that base data from their applications and then build on it to tailor to us? I mean, kind of like a suit off the rack, but you tailor it to your local needs. Is that an option to save time, to save some hours? I'm asking.
So I'll respond to that. If the board's, a majority of you say that you want this submitted between using documents that have already been created and approved by DOJ, documents that we have on our files, and then just the work of our staff, we can get this thing ready. Will it make everyone in this room happy? Probably not. The reason that we have not started that process is it was pretty obvious at the staff level that this was going to be a somewhat spirited debate. And we are ready to get this thing turned around and submitted prior to the Memorial Day deadline. But we have limited work baked into it at this time, at least at the staff level. And with respect to the board, as your staff, we're trying our best to be neutral parties. We're not trying to be a cheerleader or a salesperson on whether or not a project gets approved. But I will also say, we're also trying to be transparent. We have walked this thing through the Board of Health, through PHS, and then ultimately to the board. And we respect all views on this. If a majority of you tell us to get it done, we're going to work to get it done. If a majority says don't submit, then we walk away from the project. That was a long-winded answer.
No, I appreciate that.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, sir.
So from what I've been told, there's a timeline between application submission and when we'll possibly know if we, were awarded the grant. That's, I believe, October when we'll find out if we were awarded the grant. Do you guys think that that's enough time for us to really get a grasp on what it is we're trying to do, what it is we want to do? So if we find out we've won the grant, we can, vote it up or down whether we accept the money and then actually get started on this.
Okay. My suggestion would be that the application contain at least in outline form, the parameters and priorities that this board has identified, so that DOJ or whoever is approving it knows where we want to go with this, what we want to accomplish, so that they don't come back later and say, well, your metrics aren't the same as what we took from this application. That's my suggestion. Shokwe?
Just a quick note, Mark Totten said verbatim, you know your community better than we do.
He did. All right, so here's a question. As you all know, there can be umpteen whereases in our resolutions, and those are for information and background. The rubber meets the road when you get to the words that say, now therefore be it hereby resolved. That's the operative part of the resolution. 4193 says, now therefore be it hereby resolved that the Berrien County Board of Commissioners approve, probably should be approves, but my mother's not here to correct my grammar. The submission of the grant application for funding as described above. My question is, instead of a period at the end of that sentence, could there be a comma that says, subject to final review, or subject to review and approval prior to submission of the application? Which would mean it would have to come back to us before the document goes to DOJ for this board to sign off and say, yeah, we're comfortable with what's in it, or we're not comfortable with what's in it, cancel it. Question. And it's not rhetorical. So what do you think?
I guess the question is then posed to the board, is the disagreements or the no votes today on procedure or the idea of doing it in general? Because if we agree that this is something that should be done, then giving staff that time to prepare the application and come back to us and say, this is what we would like to submit. It gives all of us time to peruse, to dive into, to pontificate if we want to, and come to a distinction on what we want to do. I think that's great.
I'm certainly not interested in pontification. I'm interested in seeing if we can keep it moving, but still have the option of saying, that's not what we want. That's not what we want to pursue, or it is, and then submit it. And then we'll have additional time between now and October to further refine it. But if it's flexible, or if flexible really is vague, vague's not good. And if we can plug in what we're looking for, at least somebody in Washington, some person in some office somewhere is going to look at it and say, okay, Berrien County, we know what you want to pursue and we're interested. Or they're going to say no. But at least we'll know before we start investing, get community partners involved, get other resources committed. As you were told, federal grants are prodigious undertakings when it comes to tracking. And if we're gonna take something like that on, I'd like to make darn sure that we really are invested in the outcome. So I wouldn't approve it without that amendatory language, okay? That's just me. But if we can keep it going and get the document put together and see the document before it's actually mailed off or submitted electronically or whatever the thing says in those 50 pages, I'd be okay with that. But with the understanding that if it doesn't pass muster around the horseshoe, that's it. It's not going anywhere. And I'm really troubled by the communication that we got from Joey Andrews about this, accusing us of politicizing it. I don't consider this to be a political group. We've never been political. We do what we do, and everybody pulls on the oars together, and nobody cares what party you're in. We care about doing what's right. So I hope he'll think about that and maybe change his view. Yes, sir.
I would direct a question to staff, Mr. Doucette and Guy, whether that's even possible to be done. I mean, that's, you know, I mean, no one wants to see significant effort if indeed they don't have an expectation that the board will
Well, that's
support
why
that.
I'm feeling it out too. John?
I've not seen in the past when grants are offered that the directive of the grant changes because we want it to, all right? Because the people that you're offering it to would say, yeah, we see things your way. And I don't even know what that looks like for the staff to try to assemble something that is going to say, we're going to stop community violence, and this is what we're going to do. The grant specifically says the main purpose of it is to identify people.
Well, the
And-
AG USA said that. I don't know what the grant says.
It
does say that? Okay,
That's what it says.
okay.
And so now if you get to the point where you say, well, we want to alter the grant, then it's something that wishful thinking for everyone here. We all want the same thing.
Yeah.
But can you do it through this grant? And my question is to put staff through that and to try to come up with something that we alter it, saying that, well, we're going to go ahead and wordsmith what we're good with, you know, and send it in. I don't see that functioning under this grant. I just don't see it. I don't see it happening.
Okay. Bob, were you done?
I'm done.
Okay. Anyone else? Dave?
I just have no faith. This is absolutely not political, and I don't think it should be coming through the county. I mean, if there are specific areas, why cannot they ask for the grants in Benton Harbor, Benton City Township? Well, they can't do that?
They could. There's a question about having the bench strength to administer grants and account for the dollars. There's some unsatisfactory history with those things in some local communities. And I don't know whether Benton Harbor would be up to the task. Anything like this that's done is in some measure going to involve third-party contractors to help you. I was just slipped a note that said the grant submission deadline, absent some kind of extension, is 3 weeks from today, the 18th. So if that's the case, I think you would be relying heavily on something like the one that came out of Grand Rapids and then adjusting it to suit our identified priorities. As far as committing 400,000 to identifying root causes or sources, I wouldn't be in favor of giving that money to MSU. MSU has told us we can't say Christmas tree or America anymore. I don't know why. Those have been identified as offensive words, but could we focus the 20% on a local source for identifying, on a C5, like Berrien Community, or a group of local sources to help us identify? Health Department has data through the Department of Public Health. You can correlate a breakdown in the family unit and crime. You can correlate failure to get a high school degree with a breakdown of the family unit. Some of this stuff is out there. Maybe it's a matter of tabulating it. Do we want to give it a try?
No.
Okay. Any other comments?
I like kicking the can down the road and waiting to see what they come up with.
What does that mean?
That means you're working extra.
Is there any interest in the amendatory language being put on the resolution for consideration today? No, because it would take a motion to amend it. Is there anyone interested in making that motion? Okay. Pardon me?
I said I would make that motion.
Is there support?
I'll support.
Okay. The vote we're about to take would be on that amendatory language, not on the original resolution. And just to repeat, at the end of the last paragraph, it would say, comma, subject to review and approval prior to submission of the application. That's the amendatory language. Is that in keeping with your understanding, Commissioner?
By administration or by the commissioners?
Commissioners.
As commissioners.
Yeah, because it starts out that the Board of Commissioners approve, but then it says subject to final review prior to submission of the application, which would implicitly mean in the next 3 weeks. Ma'am.
Which also means then that we're going to be pulling our staff to focus on this for 3 weeks, and we may or may not want it.
That's the chance you take. If we don't like it, we don't submit it.
So let me get this straight. Does the Board of Commissioner want to play a role in, I guess, solving the issue as a whole? Because it seems like there are some commissioners saying, no, we don't want to play a role in this. That other people should play a role in helping their community. And I see this grant opportunity as a call for help from the community, that the County Board of Commissioners, those who they elect to the county board, help. And are we saying, no, we don't want to help? You need to help yourselves? Like, what are we actually talking about here? Because it seems like, as Bob mentioned, this is common when it comes to applying for grants. You don't have all of the questions answered. And it seems like we have some time to get those questions answered, but it seems like there are members on this board who just don't like the idea at all. And I guess it'll be helpful if you guys just state that instead of masking it as logistical issues. If you don't want to help with coming up with the solution, then it would be best to be open and honest about that.
Well, I don't like being put on that peg either.
No,
My issue is with coming through the county, through the health department. If the funds go someplace to help us, that's great. I mean, if Benton Harbor, Benton Township, if the RISA wants to take it and use it in all the schools, not Benton Harbor, Benton Township, if they want to put most of it in the Benton Township, I'm talking. Don't interrupt me again, please. Now I forget. The monies should not come through the county, in my opinion. Has nothing to do with whether I want to help or not. That's wrong. And saying that we're standing up, just saying we don't want to do it. I mean, that's, and saying that.
I
not right.
apologize. I didn't mean to accuse you of taking that stance. There has been a conversation with our various departments, and it was a conclusion that the health department was best positioned between the sheriff's department, the prosecutor's office, and in other departments it was decided that the health department is the best way to go. And that's why I'm saying, you know, if it's not done through the health department, then it sounds like it can't be done through the county at all.
Well, that's fine, and their opinions mean a lot, and I respect them all. My opinion is, I don't think it should go to the county, and I don't want to get browbeat into changing my mind. And that's what I think's going on right here.
I always understood that all departments, if they're gonna go for a grant, have to come through the county first.
They do.
We do.
So I really,
Whether it was the health department or
yeah.
Parks Department for our park system, Sheriff's Department, prosecutor, you name it. Oh, sorry, I realized my mic was off. Yes, so for the benefit of the World Wide Web, what I was saying is, yes, you're correct. The grants have to come here, whether it's health, parks, sheriff, prosecutor, any other department, we would have to approve it. And the most recent one was the courts. You know, we had Judge Howard last week talking about the eviction diversion program and explaining that that's not entirely focused yet on what all they would be doing. But they wanted to have the chance to move forward. So we said, okay, we approved the submission of the application. Again, with the understanding that if it comes back and has a funny aroma, we can pitch it. I would think you could do the same thing here. But I also understand some reticence. Some folks may not want health to do it because of recent history. I would again note recent history, I think, had more to do with former employees and directives coming from Lansing that we didn't have any control over. I'm hoping they all know, including people in Lansing, that was a colossal error. They hurt the kids in the schools. But this matter now, can we find another conduit for submission of the application? Whether it be a county department or a community organization or even another political subdivision in the county, meaning governmental unit, to not, as someone said, to not throw the baby out with the bathwater. Is that an option? Any thoughts? John, did you have something?
Yeah, I don't know how best to put this, without just saying it again. The grant's purpose, you know, as identified by the state is as I've already said, for us to wordsmith it into something that's amenable with us. I don't know what that'll look like. I think that without question, we all want to fix violence in the community any way we can. And we're all in lockstep with that. To do it with this grant, I'm not sure that their purpose is the same as what our purpose would be. And you go down that road with staff time, I can't say that. To submit it under somebody else, I would have been, I think, more inclined to believe that the best organization in the county to take care of this would have been the Sheriff's Department. You know, that finger on the pulse. No baby out with the bathwater. I would have thought that they would have had the best shot at trying to administer this. And no offense to the health department, but that's where it would seem to fit to me to have that. And then I think I would be confident that with violence, it would have been in the right spot. But like I said, I don't think with their purpose being clearly identified by Totten, to identify people is the same as what our purpose would be in this. So those are just my thoughts.
Did he respond? Okay, thank you. Any other thoughts about a different county department? Or, I mean, would the sheriff's department be more palatable, or would we still be dealing with 400 grand for root cause?
You still are dealing with the need to research. It's a component of the grant. You're still dealing with what John had said. I'm
Could
sorry
we
that I
take
put
the
them in
400 grand and say, here's our research?
You can enhance research material, things that have been done to refreshen them. You have to do the research component. You have to create this community violent crime intervention prevention team and what the makeup of that looks like.
To address the question as to whether or not the sheriff's office could be the applicant on behalf of the county, we're unclear. The sheriff's in the back reading through the guidelines now, and he's uncertain as to whether or not he, as the sheriff, can apply, or if it would have to be the county as the lead applicant. But either way, that's a question that just will require some time. To the board, if the majority of you are feeling as though that this is something you are uncomfortable with, then just tell us. This is one where we are trying to be responsive to the board. We also respect that we serve at a simple majority. And to try and craft a document that I can try to guess will be acceptable to the simple majority is going to be pretty difficult, if not impossible. And as your staff, we're going to respect whatever direction the board wants to go.
Sir.
I continue to feel that this is an important issue for the community, for us. My concern is that by asking for it to be put together to meet the current submission deadline, puts the staff in a very untenable situation. They're going to spend a lot of time on it, that some people might not be happy with the product and what's submitted into the grant, and that will not put them in a good light. I actually am confident that the health department is the correct place for this initiative, that they have experience bringing together community partners. But the reality is this is too important of an issue for us to start trying to come up ways to beat it into some type of approvable process. So my caution would be, let's convene a task force of this nature. Let's do the legwork that needs to be done to make it an effective grant application, and wait for the next cycle and go for it again. My concern is rushing to try and get this done ends up with a product that no one's happy with, and then it damages a lot of relationships.
All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah.
I'm going to echo Commissioner Harrison's comments. If there's any desire to go down this path, give us a year. Commit to an ad hoc, commit to every month working through, build a document that everyone has seen, spend 12 months working on it, and then submit next year. But to try and bake something that the majority of this board is going to be ready to accept, there is no way without a crystal ball that we can pull that off in a limited period of time.
All right. I'm told just now, law enforcement cannot be the grant recipient. So that would rule out the sheriff's office and the prosecutor's office. Understanding the optics, is there, in light of Commissioner Harrison's comment, in light of the administrator's suggestion, is there a motion to table this resolution with an eye towards coming together and articulating a vision for purposes of resubmission of an application in the next grant cycle, that would echo the, the comments of the board and would provide a vision that was clear, not split or blurred. With that thought in mind, is there a motion to table?
I'll make the motion to table.
Is there support? Support moved by Pitchford, supported by Ott. For our rules of procedure, that's voted on without discussion.
Do I have to withdraw my motion?
This will supersede your motion and support by Michael.
Okay.
Mr. Chair, can the motion to amend be withdrawn first?
I think this supersedes. I know it was moved and supported, but we had actually done a roll call. But Sharon, if you want it, or Thad, if you want it, pulled. All right, gentlemen.
Yeah, I'll withdraw.
Okay, all right, motion and support are withdrawn for the amendatory language.
The first one, because you got two motions
Second.
live.
Second one,
Okay,
yeah, both are
motions.
withdrawn.
That one's,
And we're
Yeah.
tabling the first one.
Well, now we'll do the amendatory language is withdrawn. Now we have a motion on the floor to table, which has been moved and supported and is voted on without discussion. When you're ready, Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Harrison,
Yes.
Hinkleman.
No.
Majerick,
Yes.
Ott,
Can I ask a clarifying question? We're voting to table the resolution, is that correct?
Yeah, it's being pulled.
To pull it?
Mhm.
Yes.
Pitchford,
Yes.
Ballraff,
No.
Werfel,
No.
Bell,
Yes.
Curran,
Yes.
Brayley,
No.
Elliott.
Yes,
Mr. Chair, you have 8 yeses and 3 nays.
thank you.
Four,
Four.
wait, 1, 2,
Seven.
3, sorry, 7. You have
7 to
7
4.
yeas and 4 nays.
Yeah, Mamie is having dinner in Milan right now, probably, and
I bet.
a lot happier. So,
I looked at her.
okay, so this is tabled. If there's interest in trying again, let's make sure everybody is apprised well enough ahead of time to have a pretty good idea of where it's going. And see if we can pull something together that will accomplish what we all want to accomplish, which is safer communities and better lives for these kids. Ma'am, did you have something?
May I ask, as we proceed down this, that whatever the process is, that at least the chair is informed of how it is proceeding and those conversations that were referenced, that were ongoing, that there's knowledge to that so that we can be aware of the course
Yeah, I
that it's
would,
heading, because process, and I know we talked about policy, we have process with this board as well.
we do, and I would want it to be more than just the chair. I would want the committee chairs to be apprised as well and to be able to share with their committee members so that we know if we're heading in the direction that this board wants to go, or if we need to make an adjustment and a mid-course correction, so that we can be a unified board if we submit something else. It would have been fractured to limp something across the finish line with a 6-5 vote today. That wouldn't be a good message to send. So let's see what we can do. Let's try again. It's a learning process, I guess. And I hope someone will talk to, just 1 second, to Joey Andrews. Tell him his email, to Mike Crombeen, was unproductive and threatening to sanction us simply for disagreeing is inappropriate, and he ought to apologize.
It doesn't help the process.
Anyway, yes, sir.
Just for clarity, are we moving forward with thinking about an ad hoc committee on this, or are we saying table, done, try again next year? That's what my thought was in tabling it, but if we're not moving in that direction, that changes things.
Well, we can certainly pull that together as well. I know you'd mentioned that even before you were sworn in and had talked with the sheriff and undersheriff and prosecutor. So let's take a look at that as well. Okay? Anyone else? Any afterthoughts? Okay. Kind of a letdown to go to committee reports, but that's where we are. John, you want to lead us off?
Good morning, so I'll be very brief. Thanks, John. Today, our treasurer, Shelley White, came to see us and just gave us a real brief report. It's about 12.4 million in delinquent taxes this year. That compares to about 11.3 million last year. So we're going to need a resolution to borrow that'll come forward to you folks on May 4th. We're going to ask for about half of that to be borrowed. We only need half because there is a slightly better interest rate on the money. And so she thinks that she'll be all right just borrowing the $6 million. One thing is some of the money has been invested and has come around, some of the CDs that she's got for some of that money that has been invested. She's very pleased that some of the interest rates are coming up now. She was at 1.64% with the Wells Fargo renewal before, and which was better than most of them, but now it's been renewed for 9 months at 5%. So better, very much better. And so she said that the Modern Plastics property, she wanted everybody to know that that property will come up for auction this time. There's 7 parcels. And there is some interest out there, and she'll work her way through that. And then one thing that she did talk about was the MEHAF program. MEHAF, is that MyHalf program? And she's got about 10 people that are inquiring on that. And that is a program. Terry, you got a pretty good handle on MyHalf. Could you just explain real quickly how that would even help people like at the trailer park?
Yeah, so this was funding that was created through the American Rescue Plan Act in 2021. It was launched to assist homeowners that may be having hardship, whether it be mortgage delinquencies, defaults, foreclosures. We had discussed in Finance Committee, mobile home park lot payments also would be eligible in this. Homeowners with household incomes less than 150% of the area median income. I believe Berrien's is around 55,000, or I think. So it would be somewhere in there. I could be wrong. Brian's looking it up for me. And so this is to assist those so that they can stay within their home. And it's called MyHalf, MIHAF.
Right. And that, Mr. Chairman, is our report.
Thank you. Personnel.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We met today. We considered some building and grounds complement change, talked about that and approved that. We also considered the continuing saga of the travel expense, travel request and expense policy. So that was on your agenda today. So we will be coming to you with a technical change in our bylaws. So that just to put everything kind of wrapped up in one place. And then we also had a very interesting report from Amy Pfeiffer about our EAP program and the employee usage. And so we're recommending approval of that. There's just a small increase. And then we had a very interesting presentation from John Kamer and Lex Winans regarding the GIS mapping and surveying efforts on behalf of the county and the state of Michigan. And so good meeting. And we also entertained at various times our chairman of the board and our administrator. That would conclude my report.
Really, we're good.
Yes, thank you.
Any questions for PHS? Admin, Jim?
Thank you, Matt. First in to see us this morning was our 911 director, Caitlin Samsel, along with Brian. I have reported out to you before about the conditions with the 800 megahertz tower. And there is a change order that's involved when we don't have the results on the Buchanan Township property yet. And in foresight of, okay, if something happens to that site, we can't use it, we need to proceed with finding another site, which has been determined to be the LMC property down at Bertrand Crossing. And so Caitlin presented us with a memo and got our blessings to take it up to finance. So we did, we gave that our blessing. So I don't know, but finance is good with it.
Can I jump in there real quick?
Yes, go ahead.
So Jim, finance offered concurrence. We will work to get an authorizing resolution. It'll flow out of admin. We'll try and get it to you early next week with the intent of bringing that forward at next Thursday's night meeting.
Okay, good.
Yep.
All righty. Then next in to see us was friend of the court, Director Lisa Jardine, and Commissioner Ott would like to report out on her.
First off, Lisa, wanted to thank the board for the restructuring team that you allowed her to create. She said that was a great help. And she said that the state reached out to the Friends of the Court here in Marion County to assist with multiple programs. So I would, to me, that shows that the Friend of the Court is doing great work if the state's going to reach out to them. They established a division of operations in the courthouse, which will help make training simpler. She's also working on electronic filing because apparently there's 25 full filing cabinets that need to be electronically entered. Was that my understanding? Was that correct? And they are going to be putting forth a resolution to request for grants because their programs are every 5 years and these are grants for reimbursement. The next one would be active October 24th through September 28th, and it is a federal grant, and it's used to, I believe, my understanding was supplement their payroll.
It is the bulk of, it is the bulk of her budget comes from the federal grant.
Yeah.
So,
And that was it. Other than that, she expressed gratitude to the commissioners for supporting her.
Okay, thank you, Alex. Next in to see us was the Juvenile Center Director, Gregory Skipper, and Commissioner Werfel would like to report out on that.
Yeah, he gave us a rundown of right now, we have 10 youths at this center itself. I asked the question about how many of those were the 17-year-olds based on raise the age, and he said to his knowledge, 3 or 4. So I thought that was good news that it was a lower number. They've got 5 on Tether and 1 on community intensive. I didn't write the last word down, but basically he's working in the community and doing a good job. And then the sheriff, as he reported this morning, there are 5 at actual jail. So, and those probably are in the 17-year-old range, I'm assuming. He said they're still in need of some youth specialists. They've got 11 openings, 3 for supervisors. They've been attending job fairs at all of the community college. They've got a meeting with Andrews coming up also to try and help fill those. They have hired 1 intern for this summer from a college, and they've got a potential for another one next summer at a different place. So that's moving along, and they're trying to get creative in job staffing. That's my report.
Thank you, Julie. Next in to see us was Daniel B. and his assistant Paula. And for the past week, the administration committee members have been poring over information provided to us similar to this that has been put together by Daniel B. We have been asking questions and refining things so that today we could put some final touches to this. And so our discussion this morning basically asked him to take this current list, and I think I explained to you before, he's got it prioritized 1 through 5. What you're gonna see, because eventually the whole board is gonna get this. We asked him to send an updated version to the admin committee members so that we can discuss it. And then we will have this forwarded to the entire board so that on the night meeting in New Buffalo, he will make a presentation basically from this document for the whole board. And that way the whole board will have seen this information and can digest it before the night meeting. But what we asked in the revised schedule is, you're gonna see columns over here. The yellow column is brick and mortar. That's projects that can move forward now, the money allocated for that. The next column, there were feasibility and design studies built into the other one. We asked that that be extracted out. You know, how much is actually doing and how much is designing and planning. Then you have what has already been budgeted in our capital improvement. That's baked into this number. We ask that that be extracted so that when you look at this, you will know how much has already been budgeted through the capital improvement. You'll know how much of it is feasibility and design, how much of it is actually work, brick and mortar. And then there's another column, push, budget push just means it's not being done at this particular point in time. So we will get the updated one. We'll take a look at it. Then we'll make sure that Brian gets it pushed out to the whole board. So you guys have a chance to digest it, make any comments back to Brian. And then Daniel B will do his presentation for us at the night meeting. And once we sign off on it, that's what they're gonna use as their guide to expend the $15.8 million that we have allocated for all these capital improvements. And if there are no questions on that, the last thing we did was a property use request. And this is Alex's Duck Duck Run. We approve that request. It's an annual thing. It comes to us every year. And so we approve that, and that's our report.
Oh, sorry. We'll skip public, or not public, commissioner reports will be skipped. We'll go to public comments because we have some meetings already waiting to go and we're running behind. But we always have time for public comments. Name and town. Try to do it in 2 minutes or less.
Sure. My name is Becky Payne. I'm from Lakeside, but I'm here to talk about the county courthouse down the road. I've been working there for 9.5 years, and this is probably the lowest morale that I've ever seen the employees have. Basically, it's about the lack of pay. Just to catch a couple of you guys up since you're new to the board, in years, the employees have complained or pointed out the fact that other counties like us get paid significantly more than us for doing the same job. A research project was started around 2017 where a survey study was hired by the taxpayers. I don't know how much it was, but I heard it was a significant amount of money. In 2020, they presented the report, the findings, and that we were correct, that we are underpaid compared to other counties that are like ours. It was 2 years later that the board decided to vote on accepting or rejecting parts of what they recommended. The majority of the people were rejected. So as of right now, they're being paid at indigency level. So they would qualify for an indigent defense attorney if they were to get into trouble with the law right now. These are the employees that are currently working in the building just down the road. I'm only mentioning this, it's becoming more and more of a concern. The employees are dwindling down. We're not being able to retain people in departments that we're in. I work in the trial court office. I work in central assignment. I'm an assistant supervisor, so I was one of the lucky ones that got a grade increase. But the wages do not match the other counties. Our office has 12 clerks that are paid at the grade 4 level. That was approved by the board last year. There are 5 openings. One more person, we lose half the office. We've had to not have walk-in arraignments on days because we don't have the clerks. I fear that this is basically going to lead us in the same path as the juvenile center, where you're gonna have tons of openings. You're gonna have all these new applicants come in because by
2
then,
minutes, ma'am.
the wages will go up.
Thank you, ma'am. Does anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, sir.
You have 2 minutes or 3 minutes? 2, okay. Matt Kirkus, New Buffalo. We have a few major issues more important than poverty or gender dysphoria. They sneak under your radar as business as normal, like the smart city technology you allowed into our county. That is technocracy. We have license plate cameras no matter what city or state we travel to. Do you not care how this data will be used? Do you not care how enmeshed children in schools are within this surveillance matrix? But you brag and boast about your DARPA programs connecting rural areas to the surveillance grid, as if you had a choice. The administrative state restricts our access to using our own land and medicine. We know Whirlpool doesn't fear regulation. You fear them. The health department was instrumental in sowing the seeds which will lock the centers out of commerce when they reject the social credit digital currency, which was already announced will use such metrics as our search history. You for now are useful idiots to defer responsibility away from the man behind the curtain, but you will soon find your offices dissolved and replaced by some UN regional command. You will also eat the Bill Gates vaccine food. Dare I speculate the state will subsidize and sell it to our children under your purview. Most of you sat through the COVID lie and did not have the courage to speak. Your armed thugs trespass on our freedom to travel and of association, despite the oaths they took to the creator. What efforts have you made to protect the children in schools from gender and medical interventions? What effort have you made to protect our rights to collect rainwater or keep chickens without state intervention? We know the police are working with the feds and the administrative state and preparing for the next lockdown, concentration camps, or gun grabs. I project they will soon be using drones to hunt those burning wood to stay warm.
Thank you, sir. What did he say?
Pelzer, Hager Township. You know what you guys were talking about.
Go ahead, sir.
At 10 seconds to my 2 minutes. I forgot what I was going to talk about. The violence. Now, one of the reasons why there's so much violence going on, watch TV, watch those movies. Just about every one of them, they're using violence. And also look at our military budget. That used to be, our military budget used to be as much as the rest of the world put together. You think about that. That's why we got soldiers in about 100 different countries. We got a military budget. When the Democrats get in there, they don't give us as much money. But if the Republicans in there, they dump a lot of money into the military. So when your kids keep watching TV, what do you expect them to do? They learn something off of that, right? They don't learn too much in school, but they'll find out how to kill somebody with a spoon or drugs. So what I'm saying is that grant you're applying for, you know, the reason it's $2 million is because they want to funnel it to you guys, and then you spread it out to the townships and the other organizations. Otherwise, you know, each one, like the township would have to apply for it at 50 grand. This township would have to apply for it 30 grand. This way, you figure out a way to spread it around. Also, I'd like to see you appoint a committee that includes people over here. No, it's our money that's going there, right? I'd like to have a little input. Or we could have had a chance here, you know, get our input while you're having this meeting here. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to be heard? Yes, sir.
Rick Brian, Niles Township. I like that you guys tabled that. It makes me worried that you're gonna put it off until nobody's paying attention and bring it up again. I hope that doesn't happen. I just like to address this violence issue, like he said. We have a systemic breakdown of the family, obviously, as what Max said, but more than that, our morality is disappearing. letting our kids be on video games and watching television, and this, they're not getting a good direction. So a lot of this violence is the children reaching out, asking. Adults aren't the same. When children they're reaching out, they're asking for someone to show them an authority, they're looking for authority figures. And the parents are failing in that just as much as the schools or the government or anything. We all need to assume that role of being good parents and being good stewards of our communities, and not just necessarily throw money at it, because it does. Obviously, we've been doing this for 20, 30 years, and throwing money at it hasn't solved the problem. So maybe a different direction would be a good idea. Thank you.
Michael Hoy, City of Benton Harbor. Just want everybody to think about every time you choose to drive around Benton Harbor, not to go through Benton Harbor as you drive throughout your day, throughout the next year. You had an opportunity to make a difference here. So every time you choose to drive around Benton Harbor because of the violence that's going on there, think about how you could have made a difference today. For the next year, think about that. Thank you.
I'm gonna fix the hole, potholes.
Thank you, sir. Anyone else wish to be heard? All right, we'll move then to other business. Anybody have any? Sir.
I amended my conflict of interest disclosure form to add that I'm the executive director of a nonprofit that is starting to bring in a considerable amount of grants. And it's all around Berrien County in different capacities. So I'll be watchful and mindful of anything that I vote on from here on out.
And give it to corporate counsel when you're done. Any other business? All right, announcements and reminders. Don't come here next Thursday morning. Instead, go to New Buffalo. And we'll be starting at Township Hall at 6 p.m., I believe. Thus far, no committees are meeting beforehand. That could change, but as of right now, no. All right, we're done. See you next Thursday at 6 o'clock.